Thanks, guys. Here at Wells Fargo Arena, where ASU women's basketball prepares to face the Washington schools this weekend. Alex Gall, Andrew Bell, and Mason Kern here with you for Cronkite Sports. Andrew, I want to start with you. ASU, they play Stanford last weekend. They get blown out of the gym, get destroyed, and then they come back on Sunday and get a great victory versus then 23-ranked California. What were your general observations from the weekend? Do you think this bodes well for the team going forward?
Well, my general observation first of all, from that Friday game at Stanford is just one of those games where Stanford was looking for revenge from the get-go. ASU is a young team coming in on the road in a hostile environment, and Stanford jumped on them early, never looked back, and that's to Tara Vanderveer's credit. She had her team ready from the start. For ASU, I think that was one of those games where you just throw away on the road, and to their credit, they had a team meeting on Saturday, come back, regroup, go make the short trip up to the East Bay, and then dominate a 23rd-ranked Cal team at that time, Cal ranked 25 now. They go up and dominate that game on Sunday, and with a young team like that to bounce back and respond in that way, I thought it was pretty impressive.
Yeah, and definitely. We talk about some of the key performers on this team. Mason, we all know that Kiana Ibis has been the MVP for this team all season long. But since Pac-12 play have started, there's been some other key performers. Who do you think they've been this season?
Well, you mentioned Ibis. Obviously, she's been the team's MVP in terms of scoring and really all around the floor, averaging 13 points per game. Earlier in the season, before she went down, Sabrina Haynes also averaging double digits. So that was a kind of a big loss. She's a very vocal leader for this team. But now I look to Jamie Rudin, the sophomore, and then the junior Courtney Ekmark, who is the transfer from UConn. And both of these players are very dynamic. Both great shooters. Jamie Rudin also is pretty dominant in the post, and they've been able to provide ASU with a lot of scoring. Rudin's averaging 10, and then Ekmark's averaging 9.5, so she's almost at that cusp. But both these players do a lot on the court, but in terms of the mentality off the court as well, those are two big performers. And I think that if they continue to provide to this team what they've done so far, I think this team's going to be very dangerous in the future.
Yeah, and ASU, they fell out of the rankings this week, out of the top 25. I'll pose this next one to both of you. Do you think they should still be ranked? And what do you guys think the outcome is this weekend as they play both Washington schools?
Well, in terms of the Washington games, I think that they have a very good chance of winning. Although, like we were talking to Charlie Turner-Thorne earlier, they don't have great records in the win-loss column, but they are two very gritty teams. They like to grind it out. But at that same time, ASU is that same way. And ASU is a team that can come out with a lot of firepower early. If they do that, I do think that they get both wins against the Washington schools this weekend. And once they do that, I do find them being ranked at the end of this weekend because they beat the 23, like we said earlier, California at that time, now 25. And when you look at who has the most amount of votes amongst unranked teams, it is ASU. So they also have the 37th ranked defense in the nation. I think with all those factors culminating, they will be ranked at the end of this weekend.
Andrew?
And I'm going to agree with that statement as well. This is definitely a top 25 team, Alex. The way they've played this season against the caliber of opponents that they have played against, it's a top 25 team. It's a lethal Pac-12 conference, and I think that loss on Stanford on Friday is really what did them in and pushed them out of the rankings. But you ask this team, I'm sure you ask them, and they think they're a top 25 team. They could care less about the rankings. They care about how they're playing right now and what they're going to do towards the end of the season. They're focused on the big picture, and so I think for them right now, the rankings don't really matter. And as for the games this weekend, I think against the Washington schools, they come away with 2 victories. But Charlie Turner-Thorne mentioned both teams, Washington and Washington State, they've had their struggles in the Pac-12, but they've been in every game. They play competitive basketball with everyone in the whole conference, and this is a conference where if you take one game off or if you fall asleep for one game, teams will bite you, and it's one of the reasons why the Pac-12 is such a good league year in and year out.
Yeah, I actually asked Charlie Turner-Thorne about the Washington schools, and I said they only have 3 combined Pac-12 victories this season, but she raved for about 2 or 3 minutes about how good and how hard these teams play. In spite of that, though, I think ASU, like you said, they don't care where they are in the rankings. We think they're a top 25 team, and I think they get both victories this weekend versus the Washington schools. But for now, sending it back to you guys in the studio, Alex Gall, Andrew Bell, Mason Kern, Cronkite Sports.